Hello, I am Ignace Aleya from ToleratedCinematics.com, and today I will be reviewing the Sony a7S II. So since it came out, I was really excited about this camera and I really wanted to test it out. So finally I could put my hands on it. I rented this camera so I could test it out, and this is a full frame 4K internal recording camera with a 5-axis stabilizer. So it has in its body a stabilizer 5-axis that really gives you smooth footage if you're going to use it handheld, which is great. You don't have to care about your lens anymore if it has image stabilization or not. So that's great to have as well. The 4K internally is also a big plus, because the first Sony a7S, I wasn't too excited about it because it filmed full HD and I really like to record in 4K. So that was the only reason why I didn't like this camera. So now it has internal recording, and that's something that I really love about this camera as well. So having tested this camera out yesterday on a very dark location, I can say that this is a great camera. I really love this camera in comparison with the GH4. When I went to film somewhere, I always was caring about, is there going to be enough light? Am I going to be able to shoot something that's going to look decent enough? Because if there is no light, I have to widen up my lens so much that my focus distance is just so narrow that all my shots were sometimes out of focus. So that's something that I really hated, and I really had to do something about that. So testing out the Sony a7S II, I can say that it's completely gone. I don't have to care about any lighting situations anymore. If it's going to be dark, well, I don't care. Even this camera sees better than my own eyes, so it can literally change the nighttime to daylight. So that's something insane to have, and I can't imagine it still. Having this option is great, and I really love it. So I have been filming yesterday at like 30,000 ISO, and there wasn't any problem. It has a clean image, and I really loved the result that I'm getting with this. Also, I can shoot in S-Log3, which is a flat profile that can give you more dynamic range, and you can really get some nice grading done afterwards. And that's something that is great in this camera. It can work perfectly with highlights, can also work perfectly with darker situations. So that's great to have. The flat profile, you can also correct that with a gamma correct on your screen, so you can actually see it in full contrast, full saturation, so you can judge your images on your camera. Once you import them on your computer, you will see them in a flat profile, so you can grade them correctly. So that's also nice to have. So it records in 4K up to 30 FPS, and it can also shoot slow motion with it up to 120 FPS in full HD. The only downside to that is that it has a crop factor of 2.2. So if you know that isn't too big of a problem. You just have to take a little bit more distance from your object that you're filming. But if you're going to film in, for example, 60 FPS, which is also great, you can still slow it down to 50%. So that's also great to have. Then you won't have any crop factor issues. So if that's an issue for you, I'm just saying that there is a crop factor, but I don't really care about that. So when I was recording with the GH4, I had to care about my light situations. I don't have to do that with this camera, but now I have other things that I didn't have to care with the GH4 that I do have to care with the Sony a7S, and that's the battery life. So the battery life only lasts up to like 1 hour, a little bit over 1 hour, so you need a lot of batteries, or you need a battery grip. But comparing that to the GH4 also has bigger batteries, but comparing that, I could actually film a complete day with the GH4 without having to change my battery, which is kind of insane. But yeah, I didn't have to care about any battery life. So I did have spare batteries, but I had to barely change them. So with the Sony a7S, you really need a lot of batteries to change them up each time. So that's something to take care of, and make sure you have enough batteries. So right now I'm going to show some footage recorded with the stabilizer internally and when it's turned off, so you can really compare the two and see what the stabilizer is actually doing to your footage. And I must say that this is pretty great to have internally, because I really like working handheld, taking my shots and try to keep them as steady as possible with just my hands. Was a difficult task, but now with the stabilizer I find that these shots are way smoother and it looks great. And also I am recording with the Ronin, for example. So yesterday I filmed with the Sony a7S II on the Ronin M, and that works great together. So you have the Ronin M that's stabilizing your footage, and then you have the 5-axis camera stabilizer of this footage, and together with that you get better smooth video footage that you don't have to stabilize anymore in post-production. So that's really great to have as well. So something that I was expecting about the Sony a7S II and isn't there was the 10-bit recording. I really wanted to film in 10-bit color space. The GH4 is also 8 and this one is 8, so it isn't a big problem, but I really wanted to be able to do that so I can really bring out more in my color grading. But yeah, that's something unfortunate. It isn't a big deal if you know how to work with it. So also something like the rolling shutter, it's of course also a problem on this camera. I wasn't expecting anything different, but that isn't a big issue for me because I'm not using this for really fast movements, so that's not a big issue for my shooting style. Okay, so that was my review of the Sony a7S II. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give it a like. Also subscribe to the channel if you want to see more, and if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. And if you had any experience with this camera, also leave them in the comments below, because I'm also still learning this camera and I want to know as much as I can about this camera because I really love it. The only downside is the battery life for me, and apart from that, I'm actually okay. So before you're actually going to buy it, just do some more research. But I really like working with this camera, so that's great. Thank you so much for watching and goodbye.